He walked in for a simple meal, but what he saw that day revealed a heart so rare it would change to lives forever. The diner was buzzing with the usual lunchtime crowd. Plates clattered, conversations overlapped, and the smell of fresh coffee mixed with the aroma of sizzling food. Among the servers rushing back and forth was Maya, a young woman in her mid-20s, balancing a tray of sandwiches and drinks with practiced ease. She moved quickly, her eyes scanning the room for anyone who needed attention. But beneath her busy exterior, there was a constant hum of worry. She was a single mother, working long hours just to make ends meet, and every day felt like a careful balancing act between paying the bills, caring for her little son at home, and keeping her dreams alive. On this ordinary afternoon, the door of the diner opened, letting in a wave of cool air and the faint scent of the city outside. Maya glanced up and noticed a well-dressed man walking in with a young boy by his side. The man's expensive suit and polished shoes immediately marked him as someone from a different world. Wealthy, powerful, and unbothered by the struggles that filled Maya's daily life. The boy, small and frail, walked with the assistance of a stroller, his eyes wide and curious as he looked around the diner. Something about the boy tugged at Maya's heart, a mix of vulnerability and innocence that she could not ignore. The man, Richard Caldwell, led the boy to a corner booth. He pulled out the chair for the boy and carefully helped him settle in. Maya's eyes softened as she watched the interaction. It was clear that the boy, Ethan, had difficulty moving and performing everyday tasks. And Richard, despite his wealth, was attentive, but a little hesitant, unsure how to help without overstepping. Maya's instincts kicked in. She knew immediately that this boy might need more than just a menu and a glass of water. When Richard handed Ethan the menu, Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he tried to grip it. Maya noticed and quickly stepped closer, kneeling beside the booth. She smiled gently at the boy, keeping her tone light and friendly. "Hi there," she said softly. "Can I help you with that menu?" Ethan looked up at her, a mixture of shyness and curiosity in his eyes. He nodded slowly, and she guided his hands, helping him hold the menu properly so he could see the pictures of food clearly. She didn't make him feel different or pitied. She simply treated him like any other child, with patience and warmth. As the lunch order arrived, Maya realized the real challenge was coming. Ethan struggled to feed himself, his small hands fumbling with the spoon and plate. Most people might have become impatient, glanced away, or silently wished someone else would handle it. But Maya stayed by his side. She carefully scooped food onto his spoon and guided it to his mouth, letting him chew at his own pace. She made small jokes and light comments to keep him relaxed, like telling him that the mashed potatoes looked like tiny clouds and asking if the peas were planning a little escape. Ethan laughed softly, the sound pure and unforced, and the tension in the room seemed to melt away. Richard, sitting across the booth, watched quietly. He was used to people being polite to him, but something about the way Maya interacted with his son struck him deeply. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look for recognition, and she didn't treat Ethan as if he were fragile or incapable. Instead, she treated him with respect, kindness, and genuine care. Richard felt a mixture of relief and admiration. He had encountered many people in his life, but he had never seen someone handle a delicate situation with such natural grace. Maya's own worries seemed to fade as she focused on helping Ethan. In that moment, she was not thinking about her unpaid rent, her tired body, or the long night ahead. She was simply present, fully engaged in the small act of feeding a child who needed her attention. She noticed every small detail, the way he smiled when a bite tasted good, the way he looked proud when he managed to eat a little on his own, and the little laugh that escaped him when she made a funny face. Every tiny reaction felt like a victory, and she cherished it quietly. The diner around them continued to hum with life, but in their corner, time seemed to slow down. Regular customers chatted at nearby tables. Waiters carried trays with hurried steps, and the sound of a coffee machine whistled in the background. But it all faded into the background as Maya and Ethan shared this small, meaningful connection. Richard continued to watch, fascinated not only by Maya's skill and patience, but also by the obvious affection Ethan displayed toward her. There was a trust there, an instant bond, that could not be forced or faked. It had simply happened. Maya, unaware of the effect she was having on Richard, focused on the simple task at hand. She reminded Ethan to take small bites, encouraged him when a piece of food fell from his spoon, and praised him when he managed to feed himself a little. Her calm, steady presence seemed to give him confidence, and the nervous tension that had lingered when they first sat down gradually disappeared. For Ethan, this was not just a meal, it was a moment of comfort, attention, and human connection that made him feel cared for in a way he hadn't felt before. Finally, when the meal was finished, Maya helped Ethan wipe his face and clean his hands. She smiled warmly and said, "You did amazing today. I'm proud of you." Ethan's eyes lit up, and he reached for her hand briefly, a silent gesture of gratitude and connection. Richard felt a lump in his throat. He had watched many people come and go in his life, but very few had the combination of skill, patience, and kindness that Maya had shown. He realized that this simple act, feeding a child, was revealing the heart of a person in a way that no resume, title, or bank account could. As Maya returned to her duties, she didn't notice Richard's thoughtful gaze. She moved on to the next table, carrying drinks and plates, her energy unwavering despite the long day. But Richard couldn't stop thinking about her. Something about her presence, her natural empathy, her ability to care without expecting anything in return, had left a lasting impression. In a world where most people were busy rushing, calculating, or pretending, Maya's genuine kindness shone brightly, and he knew, deep down, that this encounter was far from ordinary. The simple afternoon at the diner had already begun to shift something not just for Maya, who had unknowingly shared her heart with a little boy, but also for Richard, who had witnessed a rare and beautiful human quality. The ordinary had become extraordinary. A single act of kindness had planted the seed for something that could change lives in ways no one could yet imagine. After that afternoon in the diner, Richard couldn't stop thinking about Maya. The way she had handled Ethan with such patience and warmth lingered in his mind. He wasn't someone who often noticed strangers' actions. In his world, people were either polite for show or interested in something they could gain. But Maya was different. She hadn't hesitated. She hadn't sought attention. And she hadn't treated Ethan as anything less than a normal child with a smile and a gentle hand. Her kindness had been effortless, natural, and genuine. Richard found himself replaying the moment over and over, how she had knelt beside his son, making him laugh while feeding him, how she had talked to him with such respect and understanding, and how Ethan had responded with trust. For the next few days, Richard's thoughts kept drifting back to that diner. He found himself telling his colleagues about the young waitress he had noticed. Not because he usually shared personal stories, but because this encounter had struck him deeply. He could still see Maya's smile, hear her voice, and imagine the soft, comforting way she had guided Ethan's hand. Normally, he might have shrugged it off as a nice gesture, but this time was different. He felt that something about Maya's kindness deserved more than just a passing memory. It stirred a feeling he hadn't expected, a sense of admiration and curiosity about the person behind that warm smile. Meanwhile, Maya returned to her routine, unaware of the impact she had left on Richard. Her days were filled with a constant whirlwind of tasks: serving tables, taking orders, cleaning spills, and managing the pressure of keeping customers happy. On top of all that, she had her own worries. Her rent was overdue, her son needed tutoring she could barely afford, and the nights were often too short for proper sleep. But despite the exhaustion, she had a sense of quiet pride. Helping Ethan had been exhausting, yes, but it had also been rewarding in a way she didn't often experience in her day-to-day life. She felt she had made a real difference for a moment in someone else's life, and that feeling stayed with her long after the diner had emptied. Richard, on the other hand, began to observe things more carefully. He noticed that in every interaction, Maya treated people with attention and respect. She was polite but never fake, helpful but never pushy. He started to recognize how rare it was to see someone genuinely care for others without expecting anything in return. In his world, people were measured by accomplishments, money, and influence. But Maya's value couldn't be quantified in any of those ways. She had something that no degree, job title, or business deal could teach, a pure empathy that showed in every small action. One afternoon, Richard decided to revisit the diner. He didn't know exactly why at first. Maybe he wanted to see Maya again, or maybe he just wanted to witness that rare kindness one more time. As he entered, the usual noise of the place surrounded him, but his attention immediately found her. She moved gracefully between tables, her smile steady, even as she carried heavy trays and soothed impatient customers. He watched quietly, noticing little things: how she remembered regular customers' preferences, how she handled mistakes with calm humor, and how she kept a cheerful tone even when the line of orders was long. Richard was more than impressed. He was captivated. During that visit, he saw a moment that made him pause. A young boy had spilled his drink across the table, and instead of scolding or sighing, Maya knelt and helped him clean up. She didn't seem rushed, she didn't roll her eyes, and she didn't make the child feel embarrassed. She simply smiled and made a small joke to lighten the mood, turning what could have been an awkward situation into a moment of laughter. Richard realized that this was who Maya was, someone who had the ability to transform ordinary moments into meaningful experiences through her patience and warmth. At the same time, Richard noticed the subtle ways Maya's life was challenging. The way she moved quickly from table to table, the small tension in her shoulders, the brief moments when she sighed quietly in the kitchenette, all hinted at a woman carrying a heavy load. Yet, despite these pressures, she never let them affect the way she treated her customers or her son. Richard couldn't help but admire not just her kindness, but her strength. She was someone who had faced hardship, but had refused to let it harden her heart. Richard's curiosity soon turned into a quiet admiration, mixed with a sense of urgency. He realized that someone like Maya shouldn't just be a waitress, unnoticed and underappreciated. She had gift, sympathy, patience, understanding that could change lives if given the right opportunity. The more he watched, the more he became convinced that she deserved a chance to do something bigger, something that matched her incredible heart. He knew that wealth alone couldn't make life meaningful, but he could offer her resources, guidance, and a chance to reach her potential. The thought filled him with a rare excitement, as if he had discovered a treasure that had been hiding in plain sight. Meanwhile, Maya continued her work, blissfully unaware of Richard's thoughts. She focused on the small victories of her day, seeing a child laugh, helping a customer find exactly what they wanted, or getting a kind word from someone who appreciated her effort. These moments, though small, were meaningful to her. Helping Ethan had reminded her why she continued working so hard despite the exhaustion. She realized that even small acts of care could create big ripples in someone's life. And that thought comforted her when the day felt overwhelming. Richard's observation went beyond mere admiration. He started noticing the way she connected with people, how she could calm a frustrated customer with just a kind word or make a shy child feel seen and valued. He recognized a rare combination of qualities: patience, intelligence, empathy, and resilience. It was more than he had expected to find in a single person, and he felt a growing need to ensure that these qualities were recognized and nurtured. He began thinking seriously about how he could help her, not just as a kind act, but as a meaningful investment in someone who had the potential to make a real difference in the lives of others. Days passed. Richard kept returning to the diner, always watching quietly, never interrupting, just observing. He saw how Maya handled the ups and downs of her job with grace, how she balanced her responsibilities without complaint, and how she kept her heart open to every person she served. Every interaction confirmed his belief that she was someone rare, a person whose kindness was natural, whose empathy was instinctive, and whose presence had a lasting positive impact on those around her. Richard's admiration for Maya eventually grew into a quiet determination. He knew that he had to act, not in a way that would embarrass her or make her feel indebted, but in a way that could genuinely change her life for the better. He began planning, thinking carefully about what he could offer that would honor her skills, her character, and her potential. He wanted to give her an opportunity, but it had to be meaningful. Something that could truly make a difference in her life and the lives of others. By the end of part 2, Richard's quiet observation of Maya had transformed into a purposeful intention. He understood that her natural empathy, her patience, her ability to connect with people were gifts that should not go unnoticed. He also recognized that Maya, with all her hard work and resilience, deserved a chance to expand her impact beyond the diner. The ordinary afternoon, when he first watched her feed, Ethan had become the beginning of a journey. One that would not only change Maya's life, but also touch countless others. Through her compassion and dedication. After days of quietly observing Maya in the diner, Richard knew he could no longer wait. Every time he watched her interact with customers or children, he felt an increasing sense that this young woman had a heart and spirit that deserved far more than the life she was living. It wasn't just about her patience with Ethan or the care she showed to him. It was about her entire character. Richard had encountered many people in his life, some brilliant, some powerful, some wealthy, but he had rarely seen someone whose kindness was so pure and so genuine that it shone in every small action. That afternoon, Richard walked into the diner with a clear purpose. The place was busy, filled with the usual lunchtime crowd. But his attention was fixed solely on Maya. She moved between tables with her usual energy, her smile never faltering even when a spilled drink caused her to rush between a table of frustrated customers. Richard watched her, heart full of admiration, realizing more and more that he needed to act. He couldn't simply leave without letting her know how extraordinary she was and how much potential. She had to make a difference in the world. He waited patiently until the rush slowed. Noticing how Maya finally had a moment to catch her breath, she leaned against the counter for a second, wiping her forehead, her expression showing a mix of fatigue and determination. Richard approached her quietly, careful not to startle her. When she looked up and saw him, there was a flicker of recognition. She remembered him and Ethan from that afternoon when she had helped feed his son. She smiled politely, but there was also a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Wondering what he might want, Richard took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice calm and deliberate. He complimented her not just on the way she had cared for Ethan, but on her character, her strength, and her patience. Maya listened, initially surprised. Compliments from strangers were not unusual, but Richard's words felt different. They were thoughtful, sincere, and personal. He told her that he had been watching for days, not in a way that was intrusive, but because he recognized something rare and valuable in her. Maya was quiet, unsure how to respond. Her life had been full of struggle and hard work, and she wasn't used to being noticed in such a meaningful way. Richard continued, explaining that he wanted to offer her something more than kind words. He spoke about his nonprofit organization, which focused on helping families with children who had disabilities. He explained that they were always looking for people with genuine empathy, patience, and understanding, qualities that could not be taught but were essential to making a real impact. Richard told Maya that he believed she had those qualities in abundance. He wasn't offering a temporary job or a small favor. He was offering her an opportunity to transform her life and help countless others in the process. Maya felt a mix of emotions. Part of her was skeptical. She had lived her life learning that offers like this either came with hidden strings or were too good to be true. Part of her was overwhelmed, thinking about the risks and the changes this could bring to her already complicated life. Yet another part of her felt a spark of hope, feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in a long time. Here was someone, a man of wealth and influence, who had noticed her heart and was offering her a chance to use it to make a difference. Richard, sensing her hesitation, reassured her that this opportunity was genuine. He emphasized that her value wasn't in her resume or experience, but in her character and empathy, the very qualities she had shown while feeding his son. He explained that he could provide education, training, and guidance, allowing her to grow into a role that matched her natural abilities. Maya listened carefully, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. She realized that this could be the turning point. She had longed for an opportunity to step out of her daily struggle, and into a life where she could make a lasting impact. The conversation turned practical as Richard outlined what he was offering. He mentioned a fully funded scholarship for further education, designed to help her gain skills necessary for nonprofit work and leadership. He spoke about a position in his organization where she could directly interact with families, children, and communities who needed her care and understanding. Every word was carefully chosen, demonstrating that he had thought about how to make this opportunity meaningful and empowering for her. Maya felt a mixture of disbelief and excitement. She had spent years dreaming of a chance like this, but it had always seemed impossible. Now, standing before her, it was real. As the initial shock began to fade, Maya started asking questions. She wanted to know what her responsibilities would be, how she could manage this new path, and what support would be available. Richard answered each question patiently, explaining that she wouldn't be alone and that he believed in her ability to learn, adapt, and thrive. He spoke not just as a benefactor, but as a mentor, expressing confidence in her potential and reassuring her that her heart and character were exactly what the organization needed. Maya began to feel a growing sense of trust. She realized that this wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was a carefully considered offer designed to help her succeed and make a real difference. The moment grew more emotional when Richard shared a personal story about his son, Ethan. He spoke about the challenges they faced and how rare it was to find someone who could connect with children with disabilities in a natural, compassionate way. He explained that Maya had already demonstrated this gift and that her impact could extend far beyond a single child. Hearing this, Maya felt a deep connection and responsibility. She realized that her small act of kindness in the diner had revealed something profound about her abilities, something that could truly change lives if she accepted this opportunity. Maya spent a quiet moment processing everything. She thought about her life so far, the long hours, the struggles to pay bills, sleepless nights worrying about her son, the constant pressure of survival. She thought about the small joys, like helping children, seeing a smile on a customer's face, or feeling appreciated in small ways. She realized that this opportunity offered a chance to take all those small acts of kindness and turn them into something much bigger, something that could last a lifetime. The weight of possibility was both thrilling and terrifying, but she knew deep down that she couldn't let fear hold her back. Finally, after a long pause, Maya looked at Richard and nodded. She felt a mixture of relief, excitement, and determination. She realized that accepting this opportunity wasn't just about escaping her current situation. It was about stepping into a life where she could use her natural abilities to help others and grow as a person. Richard smiled, knowing that she understood the potential of what was being offered. He had been patient, careful, and intentional, and now he could see that Maya was ready to take this step. The conversation ended with Richard offering to help her transition into her new role smoothly. He provided details on the scholarship, the organization, and the training she would receive. Maya felt a sense of clarity and purpose she hadn't experienced in years. She realized that this moment, the choice she was about to make, was a turning point. It wasn't just about a new job or education. It was about embracing her potential, trusting herself, stepping into a future she had only dreamed of. As Maya left the diner that day, she felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. She thought about her son, the challenges ahead, and the new responsibilities she was about to take on. But she also felt hope, a bright, growing hope that she could finally move beyond survival and begin a life of purpose, impact, and fulfillment. Richard watched her leave, confident that this small act of faith, his offer and her acceptance, would set in motion a journey that would change both of their lives forever. After accepting Richard's offer, Maya felt a mix of excitement and nervousness that followed her for days. For the first time in years, she wasn't just thinking about surviving the next paycheck or getting through another long shift. Instead, she was thinking about the possibilities ahead, learning new skills, meeting families, and making a real difference in the lives of children like Ethan. The moment she committed, she realized that her life was about to change completely. It was thrilling, but also intimidating. She had spent so long in a routine of struggle that imagining a future of purpose and impact felt almost unreal. Richard had ensured that the transition would be smooth. He provided a detailed plan, helping Maya understand what she would learn and what her responsibilities would be. She would begin with education and training in nonprofit management, learning the skills necessary to work effectively with children and families with disabilities. At first, Maya felt anxious about this. She had never gone back to formal education in years, and the thought of returning to a classroom environment was daunting. But Richard reassured her, emphasizing that her heart and character were already extraordinary, and that the education would simply sharpen the skills she already naturally possessed. The first day of training arrived, and Maya felt a mixture of nerves and curiosity. She walked into the nonprofit organization, a place full of people dedicated to helping families in need. There were counselors, teachers, volunteers, and staff members, all busy with their work but ready to welcome her. Maya was nervous, wondering if she would fit in, if she would be able to contribute, and if she could truly make a difference. But as she began to meet the staff and hear about the children and families they served, she felt a spark of determination. This was the life she had always wanted, even if she hadn't realized it until now. The training itself was challenging. Maya learned about the different disabilities children might have, the specific needs each child could require, and the ways families struggled in everyday life. She had to absorb a lot of new information. From legal and educational requirements to emotional and psychological guidance for working with children, at times she felt overwhelmed. She would sit at her desk, taking notes furiously, her mind racing to remember every detail. But she also felt a deep sense of purpose that kept her going. Unlike her previous jobs, where she often felt like a small cog in a giant machine, this work felt meaningful. Every skill she learned could directly help a child or family, and that thought motivated her to push through the difficulties. After a few weeks of training, Maya began her first hands-on experience, meeting families who relied on the organization for support. Her first visit was with a family whose child had severe motor disabilities. Maya observed and assisted, using the techniques she had learned, but also relying on her natural instincts. She found that her empathy and patience, which had already impressed Richard, were just as valuable as any formal training. The child responded to her warmth, trusting her quickly, and the parents were relieved to see someone who treated their child with genuine care rather than pity. Maya felt an incredible sense of satisfaction, realizing that she was not just learning for herself, but actively improving lives. As Maya continued in her role, her confidence grew. She learned to balance her responsibilities, manage her time efficiently, and apply her training in practical ways. She became known for her ability to connect with children quickly, for a calm and understanding approach, and for the way she could help parents feel supported and heard. Each success reinforced her sense of purpose. She began to see herself not as someone struggling to survive, but as someone capable of leadership, compassion, and real impact. She felt proud in a way she had never felt before, and for the first time, she could imagine a future where her talents mattered and were recognized. Richard observed her progress from a distance, quietly proud. He knew he had made the right decision in offering her this opportunity. Maya had proven that her abilities were not just natural, but powerful when given the right environment and support. He noticed how she adapted to challenges, learned quickly, and built meaningful connections with families. Each success she achieved reflected not just her skills, but the strength of her character. Richard felt satisfaction in seeing someone rise beyond her circumstances, and he knew that Maya would continue to grow and make an even larger difference in the world. As Maya settled into her new life, she began to think about her own past, the struggles, the late nights, the long hours at the diner, and the constant worry about making ends meet. She realized that every hardship had prepared her for this moment. Her empathy had been strengthened by her experiences, her patience tested by her challenges, and her determination fueled by the obstacles she had overcome. Maya understood that she was not starting from scratch. She was building on a foundation of resilience and character that had been developed over years of real-life struggles. Maya also began to notice the ways her work was changing the lives of others. Families expressed gratitude, children responded positively to her attention, and her colleagues often commented on her natural ability to calm difficult situations. These small, tangible impacts motivated her even further. She realized that she had a rare gift, the ability to combine her heart with practical skills, making her uniquely capable of supporting families in ways that others might not. With each success, she felt more confident and more connected to the purpose of her work. As months passed, Maya's role expanded. She started to take on leadership responsibilities, mentoring new staff and volunteers, helping design programs for families, and representing the organization at events. She found herself growing in ways she had never imagined. She was no longer just a single mother struggling to make ends meet. She was a respected professional, a leader, and a source of hope for families facing difficult circumstances. Every challenge she encountered was met with determination, patience, and empathy, the very qualities that had first caught Richard's attention. Despite the intensity of her new responsibilities, Maya never lost the humility and warmth that made her so effective. She remembered the small moments, the laughter of a child, the relieved smile of a parent, the connection she felt when someone trusted her to help. Those moments kept her grounded, reminding her why she had chosen this path. Her life had transformed from one of mere survival to one filled with purpose, meaning, and the ability to create real change in the world. Maya also began to reflect on the impact of Richard's initial choice. She realized that without his recognition of her qualities and his willingness to invest in her potential, she might never have had this opportunity. That simple act of noticing her, of seeing her for who she really was, had set in motion a journey that completely altered the course of her life. She felt gratitude and a sense of responsibility to herself, to Richard, and to the family she now served. Her story was proof that a single choice, guided by insight and compassion, could change the trajectory of a person's life forever. By the end of this period, Maya had transformed. She had grown into a confident, capable professional, fully embracing her new life and responsibilities. Her work was making a visible difference, her skills were stronger than ever, and her heart remained as open and caring as the day she had first helped Ethan in the diner. The ordinary life she had led was now replaced with one full of purpose, connection, and hope. Every step of the journey reminded her of how far she had come, and how a single moment of kindness and recognition had been the catalyst for this incredible transformation. Years had passed since that day in the diner when Maya had first fed Ethan, Richard's young son. The memory of that afternoon remained vivid in her mind, the laughter of a small boy, the gentle encouragement she had given, and the quiet observation of a man who would unknowingly change the course of her life. Back then, she had been a single mother, barely making ends meet, working long shifts at the diner and struggling to imagine a future beyond bills, exhaustion, and routine. Today, her life was completely different. She had grown not just in skill, but in confidence, purpose. Maya had fully embraced her new role in Richard's nonprofit organization. She had learned to balance the demands of her work with the responsibilities of her family, and she had become a respected leader. Families trusted her, colleagues admired her, children responded to her warmth and patience in ways that filled her with pride. Every day, she witnessed the results of her dedication, a parent relieved to find help for their child, a child smiling because someone took the time to understand them, a program she helped design succeeding in ways she hadn't dared imagine when she was serving coffee at the diner. The tangible impact of her work was a constant reminder that her efforts mattered. Despite all her accomplishments, Maya remained grounded. She never forgot the struggles that had brought her to this point. She remembered the long hours at the diner, the exhaustion that made her bones ache, the fear of not being able to provide for her child, and the small victories that had kept her going. These memories shaped the way she approached her work and her interactions with families. She knew what it felt like to be exhausted, uncertain, or overlooked, and she made sure that every family she worked with felt seen, supported, and valued. Her empathy had deepened. Honed by her own experiences of hardship and perseverance, Maya often reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought her to this point. She thought about the moment when Richard had approached her, offering education, training, and a position in the nonprofit organization. She understood that it wasn't just luck or chance, it was someone noticing her, valuing her natural gifts and giving her the opportunity to grow. That single act of recognition had set in motion a journey that transformed her life, opening doors she had never imagined. She realized that kindness, when recognized and nurtured, could have profound consequences not only for those who received it, but for the wider community they could touch. Richard, too, reflected on that time with quiet satisfaction. He had always believed in investing in people, but Maya had exceeded his expectations. Watching her grow into her role had been inspiring. He admired her ability to lead, teach, and connect with families in ways that were authentic and compassionate. He had seen countless talented people in his life, but few had the combination of heart, resilience, and intelligence that Maya displayed. In many ways, her growth had reinforced his own belief in the power of seeing the potential in others and giving them a chance to shine. Maya's journey had not been without challenges. There were moments of doubt, moments when she questioned her own abilities, moments when the weight of responsibility seemed overwhelming. Some families she worked with faced crises that were difficult to manage, and some projects failed despite her best efforts. But Maya learned to navigate these challenges with patience and grace, drawing strength from her early struggles and from the knowledge that every small action could make a difference. Each obstacle she overcame reinforced her confidence and reminded her that her journey was about perseverance as much as it was about talent or opportunity. Her son, now a little older, had also grown under her care and attention. Maya often reflected on the balance she had learned between nurturing her own child and helping others. She recognized that her experiences at the diner, feeding Ethan, had prepared her in subtle ways for the complex role she now played in her work. She saw that patience, empathy, and the willingness to go the extra mile could create deep, lasting bonds that empowered children, parents, and communities alike. Watching the families she supported thrive gave her a sense of fulfillment. Maya's story soon became an inspiration for others. She began speaking at events, sharing her journey from a struggling waitress to a respected nonprofit leader. She spoke about the importance of empathy, perseverance, and recognizing opportunities when they appear. People listened, captivated by her sincerity and the authenticity of her experiences. Her message resonated widely, that small acts of kindness, patience, and genuine care could ripple outwards, creating opportunities, transforming lives, and inspiring change in ways that no one could predict. Despite her growing influence and recognition, Maya never lost sight of the small moments that had defined her path. She often returned to the diner where it had all started, visiting quietly to see familiar faces and to reflect on how far she had come. She thought about that ordinary afternoon with Ethan and the simple act of feeding him, realizing that such small gestures, when noticed and valued, could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The diner, once just a place to survive, now symbolized the beginning of a journey filled with growth, opportunity, and impact. Maya also reflected on the power of trust. Richard had trusted her, and in doing so, he had given her a chance to trust herself. That trust had unlocked her potential and allowed her to grow in ways she could never have imagined. She understood that her journey was a testament to what happens when people believe in one another. When acts of recognition and kindness create a foundation for growth, it was a lesson she carried into every interaction, ensuring that those she worked with felt seen, valued, and empowered to achieve their own potential. Over time, Maya's influence extended beyond the nonprofit. She started mentoring young women, especially single mothers, showing them that their circumstances did not define their potential. She shared her story openly, illustrating that with determination, resilience, and the right support, they too could transform their lives. Her mentorship became a ripple effect, touching more lives than she could have imagined and creating a network of empowered individuals committed to making a difference. Looking back, Maya realized that her life had been shaped by a combination of resilience, empathy, opportunity, and the willingness of someone to notice her worth. She recognized that while her hard work had been essential, the critical turning point had been Richard's decision to give her a chance. That choice had not only changed her life, but it also created a cascade of positive outcomes, affecting countless children, families, and communities. Maya understood that life-changing moments often began with recognition, belief, and opportunity, and that she now had the ability to pay that forward to others. As Maya reflected, she felt gratitude, fulfillment, and a deep sense of purpose. She understood that the life she now led was not just her own, but part of a larger story of compassion, empowerment, and impact. Every family she helped, every child she nurtured, every young woman she mentored was a continuation of the journey that had begun in the diner with Ethan. She felt proud, not just of what she had accomplished, but of who she had become, a woman who transformed struggle into opportunity, empathy into action, and kindness into a lasting legacy. In the quiet moments, when she paused to reflect, Maya often thought about Richard and Ethan. She realized that their trust and belief in her had changed her life forever. That single choice, that recognition of her heart and abilities, had set her on a path of growth, impact, and fulfillment. And now she could see the ripple effect of that choice, how her life, once ordinary and full of struggle, had become extraordinary, full of purpose, and capable of touching countless others. Maya knew that her journey would continue. There would always be challenges, new families to help, new children to guide, and new opportunities to learn. But she faced them with confidence, gratitude, and an unwavering sense of purpose. She understood that her story was proof of something powerful, that one act of kindness and recognition, one opportunity given with belief, could transform lives in ways that reach far beyond what anyone could imagine. Her life had changed, not by luck, but by a combination of hard work, resilience, and the chance to have her gifts recognized. Maya had moved from a world of survival to a life of significance, leaving behind the limitations of her past and embracing the boundless possibilities of a future shaped by compassion, dedication, and courage. The ordinary afternoon, when she fed a small boy, had become a defining moment, a spark that ignited a journey of transformation, growth, and lasting impact that would continue for the rest of her life.